Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we have Anjana Srikrishnan, a user researcher from Microsoft. She will be walking us through how her journey was into research and what does she think is a researcher's impact. So Anjana, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? What is some of the work that you do and how do you spend your typical day?
So I'm a user researcher with Microsoft, and I'm working in the area of search, primarily looking into team search. Typical day involves a lot of stakeholder discussions and meetings, and in general communication and trying to understand where the product is at, so that I can think for the product and the users.
That sounds pretty interesting. So, how did you become a user researcher?
I am an engineer. So my undergrad was in information communication technology, and then I started working as a designer, user experience designer for a startup, and then after working with them for 2.5 years, I slowly progressed while I was designing into the research part, because we were actively thinking about what is it that the users want, so that the design reflects what the users want, and we started thinking for the product and for the website, which was our face. I didn't know technically, I wasn't technically what should I say, experienced about it, but then I started doing whatever I could based on learning and experience that others were also giving me. So we started doing small studies, and then we started doing AB tests, which were rage back then. But then those learnings really made me start think about what is it that I really want to do, where is it that I really want to focus. So that's something that got me interested in research. And then I did my master's in interaction design from IIT Bombay, after which I think I heavily started focusing on the research part. My stint before Microsoft was with Samsung Research and Development, and I was a design researcher with them. So I heavily focused on research as well for their voice assistant, which is Bixby. So yeah, that's my research career. And I also say that while I was doing my interaction design in IIT, I realized that I spent a lot of time in the research part of any project that we did, and finding what exactly the problem is for the users, and then solving for it brought a great deal of pleasure and satisfaction. So that is where my interest lies.
Oh, that's great. But what do you think is your jam as a researcher?
So, like I'm told, I am from a technical background. So, and right now also I'm into search and AI. And ever since my master's as well, I've been working in the area of search and intelligence and voice. So I am very closely connected with technology, and I really like understanding both users as well as what the technology is. So making that connection and actually trying to figure out how is it that the technology should be presented to users, and the ethics of it and everything is what I really it really excites me. And the other thing is basically in research, like in the whole cycle of research, sense making of something, that because people don't tell you exactly what they want, right? So that's what research is all about. You're trying to interpret things and draw patterns. So when the patterns start emerging, and when there's some idea that makes you feel go all wow, these are some of the things that really drive.
Okay. Can you tell us about some of the interesting work that you have been doing so far?
Something that's really close to me, I want to share that, is the project that I did back in college. I started with transportation for visually impaired people, and I plunged into it with this thought that okay, visually impaired people and transportation. So just made that connection, and sort of we were working in Germany back then. We built a wearable device which works as a Geiger counter, whenever a visually impaired person is close to a bus, based on the vibration, they know where the entrance of the bus is and they enter it. This is what the project was about, helping them locate the entrance of the bus. But then when I came back to India, this was a huge change in my thinking as well. Because when I came back to India and tried to sell the same idea, my professor just told me, why don't you just travel, shadow of visually impaired people in Bombay, in Mumbai, and then come back to me, and then we'll talk. So then I just shadowed nearly 10 visually impaired people just commuting from home to work to home, train or auto, bus, anything. And then I realized that the Geiger counter cannot work for India. We have a lot more things that we need to fix. And then I worked on a map, basically, a map made by visually impaired for visually impaired. It's just like a layer on top of your regular maps. And the other one was basically helping people with orientation, because what we do before we travel to a new place, we can look at visual images of a place and go, right? So what is the equivalent that we can give to visually impaired? So probably a surround sound or a 3D sound, because they're really good with sound and smell. So if you give them that information, maybe when they go there, it becomes like a reward, right? The reinforcement that you're in the right place. Something like that. So I felt with this, I'm really close to this project. I felt like it also made me a better researcher and a better designer, instead of just not going with your initial gut feeling, right? Like figuring out what is it that matters. Over the last 6 years of my research career, I've been primarily working in the area of AI and voice, and how the conversation should be, and how the whole back and forth should be with an assistant, and search. How do you retrieve information? So this is the area. And in this area, while I was with Samsung, we worked specifically on policy making, because a lot of, you have to concentrate on the ethics of it and the policy making of how a conversation should be, and what is the territory that you shouldn't enter. How do you handle the emotions that an assistant ends up showcasing at points?
So, what are you up to at Microsoft at the moment?
So in Microsoft, I am part of 2 charters. So one is team search, all the rage now. So that's one of the big things that I'm handling, and also there's another team called Microsoft Search, Assistance and Intelligence, which is also heavily focused on information retrieval search and assisting users in their day-to-day activities while they're using all of Microsoft's productivity tools.
So I do know that you have done some interesting work on identifying research impact. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Other than handling some of these research projects, a lot of us researchers come together as a community in Microsoft, and we also jam, we also discuss about a lot of things. So I'm into processes that we should look at for research and stuff. So I am sure that researchers here and there keep hearing this word impact. Like, what is the impact that you're driving, or say you say these are the learnings, or these are some of the learnings from my recent user interaction, and then you're asked, like, what is the impact, or is it useful? Is it something that is going to generate money, or a bunch of things, right, around this, right? So I was really intrigued. I wanted to understand what does impact mean for researchers, because some of us are very academically inclined, some of us are very application oriented, right? But then impact is something that all of us should be thinking about. So this was an activity which I did to understand what impact means for different researchers across. How do they, in their journey, ensure that this impact is communicated, not just measured, but also communicated. Also drew inspiration from a lot of articles online, so done with a lot of desk research and everything. Just put together a simple framework which speaks about the different soft as well as quantitative, measurable as well as some of them are not measurable kind of impacts that are there, so that you can just look at it while you're saying that, okay, this particular study, this was what I was able to drive. So yeah.
That sounds super interesting. Can you tell us more about this framework?
Sure. A lot of us know, especially people who are working in technical companies or companies where business is focused on figuring out have we met our goals, how much profit are we making. In such situations, we measure everything in numbers. Everything is quantitative. But then design and research is also very subjective, and not everything can be measured objectively in numbers. It also becomes very difficult for researchers to communicate this. So a lot of us miss out on it. We do a lot of work that is impactful, but we don't know how to communicate. So we miss out on even selling ourselves in that aspect, saying that I have helped so many people gain this knowledge, or the direction of the entire business changed because of this. And at some point, all of this will convert into business and numbers, but not immediately. So I've just put together a few different kinds of impacts, which is a combination of things that you can measure and some which you have to subjectively communicate, but put it inside a bucket. So these are just buckets of impacts, which may not be all encompassing. You can come up with your own impacts as well, but these are some points that you could use as initial thinking points. So I'm just going to share a few with you. Starting with one of the buckets that I've put together is called understanding and awareness. And what does it mean is, has your research sort of helped people gain a certain understanding that they did not have before? And sort of the whole team is now are on the same page of understanding, and they understand the issue better, and then they sort of are able to move forward. So have you helped the team build an understanding around something? And some of the examples could be knowing your users, because so far you didn't know what exactly they need or what they want, understanding the space that you are working in or the product is in, and being aware of the gaps in the product. Sometimes we're not even aware of that, right? So just creating that understanding and awareness. And if you're able to communicate that, then that is one bucket that you have. The second bucket is decision making, which we keep doing in cycles because that's how the product works. So probably you help the team with LT meetings, or there's a product planning that happens in every quarter, or strategic initiatives, because as researchers, we may not just be doing studies, but we might also be part of some of these brainstorming sessions, or you're the one who's moderating brainstorming sessions or co-creation activities or whatever, which helps the team sort of make certain decisions, certain difficult decisions, or even just to prove a point, to prove a product strategy to a larger community. So any sort of decision making, if you are able to influence, that goes into the decision making impact bucket. The other one is straightforward. It's economic. It's objective. You can figure it out. But there are two kinds. One is while conducting the study, you already know the impact before the study or while doing the study. You know that this is a sort of economic impact that you're going to drive. But it can also be where you've sort of stopped the team from productizing something that would have otherwise become a loss, or you save time for the team where a large number of people end up spending a lot of time making something, and then you show the team that by not making this, what all we are able to save, the money that we are able to save. So it's either the money that you gain or the money that you're able to save. All of this goes into economic impact. And you can also, it can be retention, it could be acquisition of something, it could be course correction, early course corrections, and also engagement, like you've improved the engagement or whatever. So all of this can directly go into your economic bucket. And then there is policy making, especially in the world of AI. A lot of us would start thinking about what are the frameworks, what are the rules, what are the principles that we have to base our whole design on or product on. So if we are influencing that, and I think that research can heavily influence these frameworks and policies, it's very scalable as well. So when we do this, we can capture this as an impact because it's a huge impact. And it could be framework or systemic changes that you help them make, or some sort of a research plus product thinking, which results in design principles. So all of this goes into the policy bucket. And then we have health and well-being bucket, which I feel is an implicit bucket, which we don't, if you're not a health focused product, we don't end up calling out this impact. But I think as researchers, we think about users more than anybody else. So when we look at a particular area for a period of time, I think we start thinking about, are we overwhelming the users? Is it too much of a cognitive load for the users? Should we not blindly give them 10 more notifications just because we have the capability? Is it better to reduce the screen time? So we are actually thinking about their health as well. So a lot of what we do can directly go into the health and well-being bucket. Some of the examples could be your research led to better outcomes for an entire community or individuals. You're reducing their user stress. You're making them happy. You're reducing their frustration levels. You're being mindful of your users and probably allowing more family time by improving the productivity. And you're also probably helping them merge their life and work. So that goes into the health and well-being bucket. And then there is a cultural bucket where changes in, say, prevailing values that we have, like strong values that you have, the team has, or the company has, the society has. If we are able to, through the stories that we say or through the work that we do, if we are able to change these prevailing values, or the attitudes of people, the mindset and attitudes of people, then it's a huge win. And I'm sure that it's not something that you can calculate by numbers that I've changed value for so many people. But then just to see that your team has user empathy now, has a better understanding of the users, and then the way they talk, the language they use to talk about the users or the product, and the way they think about, if there is a change, you can use it to say that you've brought in a cultural change. And also, if your product has become user centric and user is the center of everything you make, then you have made a cultural change where the entire team is now focused on the person they're building something for, and advocating and thinking about research in time. Because if you do research much in advance, then you save a lot of the other buckets that I told, right? Policy bucket, the decision making bucket, and everything. So basically, you've set a culture where research is done at the right time. So all of those could go into that bucket. And then there is preparedness, like making the team ready for something. Because a lot of us also start seeing patterns in the things that you do and sort of figure out or think or forecast, something is going to happen, we should be prepared for it. And for example, now with AI and GPT and everything, we're thinking about what can we do, how can we incorporate these things, and how can we be ready. So how do you help your people be prepared for something? It's both capacity and preparedness. If you are contributing to the team's capacity or being ready for something, so then that could be in that bucket. So research that helps individuals and groups better cope with changes that might come and make huge impacts, positive or negative, anything is fine. So things that can fall under this is some foresight strategy that you can do, or landscape study, and then say that rest of the world is doing this, we should be doing this, some sort of a benchmarking, or showing them basically the reality of where we are and where we should be. Things like, if you're able to say phone with AI and with all of these things, phone usage will go away. Everything is going to be based on voice. Typing and touch is going to go away. Everything, any of this sort of trend that you're preparing the team for goes into preparedness. And then there is attitudinal bucket. Some of this is interlinked with the understanding and awareness, where once you get an understanding, you've shifted your attitude or your thinking. But it's also about changing the perception about the user and also breaking myth, because a lot of times, a lot of the product or decisions, let's be honest, is based on assumptions and myths and whatever, because of whatever reasons, right? So for research to debunk these myths and tell people that this is what we should be doing is not easy. But if we are functioning in that capacity, why not capture that as a big win for us? So that is also an impact. And this is my list of impacts. And other than this, there are also people working in different areas, not in IT companies, but in NGOs or working for, say, farmers and places like that. They have environmental impacts and impacts that go above and beyond this, a lot more into psychology and all of these things. So I think we can come up with our own buckets, but ensure that it's captured in some way and communicated in a certain way. Yeah.
That sounds pretty amazing. I just had a few follow-up questions. So, how do you think would a researcher of one sort of work with this particular framework?
Okay, cool. So I'm going to sort of touch upon the whole journey that we have, right? As researchers, I think we do a lot of different kind of things, and we keep evolving and changing. And basically, we are also thinking about what sort of processes we have to bring in to the whole cycle of product development at different stages in order for the team to do better, in order for the product itself to be better. So we end up doing, say, certain talks. So we learn about a few things. We do brown bags. We do certain talks very early in the thing. We evangelize research itself. And while we are evangelizing research, we're sort of talking about the different kinds of research that is there. So we are sort of educating people about what research is, what are the kind of studies that you can do, what study is best, and we're understanding the problem at hand. Sometimes even identifying the problem, and then understanding the problem at hand and telling our team, then maybe this is how we should approach it. Like, not just go after this one thing, but it lies at a larger level, or just do a bird's eye view of it. So when we're doing all of this, we're actually driving impact without even capturing it. And the only things that get captured are basically this study and what happened after the study, whether it was productized or not productized. But then this whole driving, evangelizing, telling people what to go after, and then conducting the study anyway, all of us do. But after conducting the study, the onus also is on us to communicate what all we did to get here. So as a single researcher, it is not easy when you start doing this, but then it is doable, is what I have realized. That if you sort of, even before you start a project, you sort of look at which bucket you're influencing, and in the beginning, just start putting things like this evangelizing that I did, or this brown bag that I did, falls under the understanding and awareness bucket. And then I conducted a brown bag session. Now this brown bag session took a lot of my time and took a lot of everybody's understanding and everything coming together, and then finally we changed the decision making for the team. So then I'm going to put this into the decision making bucket, and then I have done a research, and then I figured out and I gave you insights. But then the team now wants design principles and sort of a framework to proceed. So I can go back to the same study now, spend some time, and then build a framework. So then I say that now my work is in the framework bucket or the policy making bucket. So it is possible if we sort of look at your quarter worth work and then compartmentalize them into stuff that I have been contributing to a lot of these other things.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on to my YouTube channel. You had some really amazing points to put forth, and I'm sure everyone will find it super, super helpful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nikita. Thank you for your time, and I hope everyone who watched really had a great time.